Hello and welcome back to the Almost False podcast, where I interview regular people with incredible stories. Until today, I had never heard of a phantom pregnancy, which, from the stats I found, accounts for about 0.005% of pregnancies in the United States. My guest today had something similar happen to her, but what makes her case stand out is that she had none of the usual symptoms linked to its development, like a strong fear or desire to be pregnant. What she did have, though, is extensive supernatural experiences involving psychics and curses. And that's where her story begins, because the pregnancy story didn't start when the pregnancy started. It started years earlier, when Kirsten first felt compelled to seek out a psychic.
All I can say is that at that time that I sought out a psychic, 6 months prior, my mom had died. She died of cancer, pancreatic cancer. And so it was a pretty quick, from her diagnosis to her death, it was just a year. So I had gone through a lot in that year. I was her primary caretaker. I was talking to all the surgeons, the doctors, etc. And it was a lot, obviously. I was 26 when I lost her. And I was, because my parents had separated at such an early age and because I grew up with her and I was her only child, we were very, very close, very close. And so when she passed, I just, I was devastated. I went numb. I was so depressed. I felt like this was it. I don't know how to be in life anymore without her. That was the feeling. And so a couple months into this, loss, grief, depression, I started to feel like this pressure. It was like a pressure on my shoulders, like, go see a psychic, go see a psychic. I don't know where it came from. I had never wanted to see a psychic in my life. I didn't think about them. The pull to go see one was never there. And all of a sudden I felt like this push to go see one. So I've thought about this question a lot, like, how did I have that inclination? I don't know, other than I know I needed to do something differently and I didn't know what else to do. And here was like this kind of push to go and do this and explore this option. My family at the time, it's strange because you think when someone dies, like, family will come together and be closer. It's not always the case. It's like everybody's grieving in their own way. And so my family, my grandmother, my aunt, they were grieving. And I felt really alone in my grief. I didn't really have anyone to turn to. So I guess I was seeking someone that would kind of show me a direction to go to in my life, because I really didn't know what to do.
Yeah, that's difficult to go through like something like that at a young age, 26, and your mom passes away very quickly. It's difficult. So, okay, it made you want to, or made you feel like, maybe you should seek a psychic. Well, the first question I have, and you can that kind of dovetails into the second one, but what was your view of psychics? Did you believe that was real before going? And then when you went for the first time, what happened?
Yeah, I didn't really believe it was real. I had questions. I was like, I don't know. I was skeptical. I was just skeptical, but something kind of led me to this place. It was the only shop that I knew about. It was about 30 minutes from my house. And my first experience, I walked through the door, and it's very it's your stereotypical, what you would imagine a psychic building to look like. She had the neon sign, the beads hanging down. There was like a desk. She had options for tarot readings. So I chose a tarot card reading. And so she had me split the deck, and she had me ask a question, which I think my question was about whether I should go to university or not. Because when my mom was sick, I was completing a master's degree. And in my mind at the time, I thought, I'll just continue this academia path. I'll continue on to the PhD. So I had applied to a PhD program at UCLA. And I was so devastated. I was so weak. I didn't want to, really getting out of bed was an effort for me. So I had been accepted to UCLA, but I didn't know whether I should go because I was just so devastated after my mom's death. So I think that was the question that I had proposed to the cards. So I split the deck, and then she started to do the reading. And she said right away, she said, "Oh, these are not your cards. These are your mom's cards." I said, "Okay." And then she started telling me things about my mom's life that were true and accurate. Your mom was in love with 3 men. Your mom had a lot of depression. She suffered from a lot of depression. There was something in her stomach. It was a tumor. Like, she kept on, and I really wasn't feeding her anything, but everything she was saying was accurate about my mom's life. And so at the end of the reading, she said, "There's something that your mom wanted to tell you before she died." And she's like, "I don't know what that is right now, but if you come back tomorrow, I can let you know. I can do a little bit of meditation tonight, and I can let you know." So I walked out of there, and I was driving home, and I was like, it was ambivalent feeling. Like, on the one hand, she had all these true things to say about my mom. On the other hand, I felt like this, I don't know, something wasn't right. I felt something wasn't right about this. I didn't know whether I wanted to go back. So yeah, that was my first experience with her.
But you believed, right? Or did you? Because it seems like from what you say, you didn't really tell her anything, and she had all these accurate things about your mom. So did you believe after that, or were you still skeptical?
There was still the skeptic in me. It was so weird, because I believed that what she was doing, she had a gift. I could see that she had a gift, and I believed in what she was saying. Everything was checking out. It was just this, I guess, the intuition part of me that was like, just something doesn't feel right here. But I didn't know what that was.
Okay. So what did you do? Did you end up going back to her?
Ended up going back to her. And she tells me that my mom had been under a curse, and that this curse was part of a family curse that went back through the line of women on my mom's side. And she had a very detailed story about how the curse began. And she didn't say exactly what year, but she just said several generations back, one of your relatives on your mom's side gave birth to a healthy baby girl. And in the same birthing room, there was another woman who gave birth to a stillborn. And this woman became really jealous and sought out someone who could help her cast this curse on this woman and have it go down the line of women in the family. And she's like, "That's why your mom, you're feeling the presence of your mom all around you all the time, because she's having trouble getting to the light. And she really needs to tell you that this is what's happening. And she needs to warn you, because now the curse is fallen to you, and it's up to you to, break the curse, break the family curse. And we're going to have to take some steps to do that." And the steps are, first of all, we have to cleanse you. We have to, light this candle. She gave me a candle. She gave me like these oils to like bathe myself in. And then she gave me some prayers to start to say, which were very Catholic, and like everything had a saint. Like, I remember I was praying Saint Francis of Assisi's prayer. She's like, say these prayers every day. And then she said, "I'm working with a church and working with some nuns, and they will pray for your mom to get to the light so we can help her transition. And then we also need to break the curse. And that requires a different kind of protocol." So then we went into that protocol, which was about gathering. I know I had to get a jar and put water in the jar. First, she wanted to test my energy levels. So she like, "Get some water in a jar and crack an egg. And if the yolk sinks to the bottom, it means your energy, is really bad. You're under this curse. And of course it sank. So of course my energy was bad. And she said, okay, so we need to do some more cleansing baths. There was another round of cleansing baths. And then she said, I want you to take another, like a mason jar, and fill it up 3/4 of the way with water. And I want you to put all of your energy into this jar. And, you know, all of your love, all of your energy, all the positive thoughts, put it into the jar. I'm a dancer. That was like my first language as a kid. I just danced around the living room. So, you know, one of the ways I move energy is I move my body. So that's what I did. I just danced kind of into this jar of water, like just danced around it, put all my positive thoughts in it. And I took it to her and she said, okay, we're going to do this ceremony to remove the curse. So she takes me into like the back room. There's a table. There's some chairs around the table. It's a circular table, and puts the jar in the middle. She's like, I want you to wrap this jar with a black cloth. So she has this black cloth. I wrap up the jar, and she has this needle, and she's like, okay, now I want you to thread the needle through the fabric 7 times. So I do this 7 times and I close off the fabric. Okay, now hold the jar in your lap. So now I'm holding the jar in my lap, wrapped up in the black cloth that I just wrapped it up in. And she says, we're going to start to pray. So she starts speaking in a language that I've never heard. I thought it was Portuguese, but I don't think it was. But it kind of sounded like Portuguese to me. And she started to walk around the table saying whatever she was saying. I had no idea. And then she switched over to English. And the prayer went something like, you know, God, we ask that Kirsten be freed from this curse, that she go on to live a happy, prosperous life. And yeah, that this curse is forever broken. And then she asked me, she's like, okay, you can open your eyes. Because I had my eyes shut and I was holding the jar. And she's like, you can open your eyes and open the cloth, like remove the cloth from the jar. So I did that. And there was this blob sitting in the jar. It was like, it kind of looked like a mini octopus, if I were to describe it like that. It had like a blob and it had these tendrils kind of hanging off of it. And I was shocked. I was like, where did this come from? She's like, well, that's the curse. That's the curse that was inside you. You don't have to worry about it anymore. We've removed it. I'm going to dispose of this. Like, you're free. Your mom's on the other side now, and you are free of this family curse. Now, when I saw that blob, I definitely, I was like convinced. I was like, okay, this is real. Like, all of this is real. Now I'm free of this curse. I was so happy. I stood up, I gave her a hug. I was probably crying with tears, because my mom was really depressed, and it was hard to grow up in that heaviness. And it felt like to me, like, oh, finally this heaviness is like gone. It's lifted and I can kind of be free to live my life.
Okay. The question actually I think is very important. Was there a way that the psychic could have put something in the jar while she was dancing around and your eyes were closed?
I don't think there was. And because I was holding the jar the entire time. Yes, my eyes were closed. I was kind of doing the like little open the eye and look out of the, corner of my eye thing, just a couple times. But all she was doing was just walking around the table. And I would have felt something move in the jar. I would have felt her adjust the cloth or something. Like, I would have felt something move out of my hand. So that to me was just incredible. Yeah, there's no way she would have been able to take that jar without me feeling it.
Okay. So now that got you convinced. So what happened after that? So she said the curse is gone. Your mom is now in the light. So everything is good. Everything's great.
Everything's good. Everything's great. She did have me, make a purchase before I left to go to LA. She said, we have to keep time moving forward for you. It's really important that you keep moving forward. You know, if you stay here in Connecticut, which is where I was at the time, you know, you don't want to stay here in the past. You want to go towards your future. And at that point, I had been accepted to UCLA. I was committed to going to UCLA to start this PhD program. So she said, I want you to go to this store and buy a watch. And it's very specific. It has a quartz crystal in it. It's really important that it has the quartz in it because it's going to keep time moving forward for you. And I'm going to make sure it keeps moving forward for you. So she makes a call to someone. I think she called me her niece. My niece is coming over to make a purchase. And so I was like, wow, that's interesting because she's just said it so like naturally, like, oh, my niece. I'm like, what? So I go to the store and the guy was obviously knew I was coming. And he said, yeah, this is the watch that she's talking about. It was a Rolex watch. It was about $3,000. And I was like, oh my God, like, I'm a college student. I don't have $3,000, obviously. But I think I was so swept up in like, yes, like my life needs to move forward. I did just feel this difference of this heaviness lifting that I was just like, okay, if this is what I have to do to keep things moving, I'm just going to do it. So I put it on a credit card and that's it. And then I walked out with this watch. I brought it back to the psychic and she said, great, I'm going to keep it here. We're going to keep time moving for you. And she gave me some things to go to LA with. She gave me scapular. So it's kind of like this little medallion. I think it might have had Mother Mary on it, but very Catholic. And then a little felt pouch to like keep it in. And she said, it's, very important that you keep these in your bag all the time. Keep them with you. They're going to bring you good luck. Things like that. So I gave her the watch and I got the scapular and then off I went to LA. Okay.
So very, very weird first interaction, but it's interesting that you went in a skeptic and at the last interaction that you had with her there, you were believing in it so much that you were willing to go into debt to pay for that watch. So
yeah.
There's to you, there's no chance that this could have been fake at this point. So it seems like everything was good, and it seems like everything was going to go in the right direction. Obviously, we wouldn't be talking here today if that was the end of the story. So what happened after you got to LA?
So after I get to LA, I start classes at UCLA. Things seemingly are going okay. And then weird things start to happen. The lights in my room start to flicker at odd times. And I'm checking the electrical plug. I'm checking this and that. But no, they're flickering every now and then. And then I'm feeling more of a heaviness, like a weightiness. So all the things that lifted before, it seemed like it was just kind of coming back. It just felt really heavy. But I passed it off as like, well, I just started school at UCLA. Like, everything's new here. It's a period of adjustment, but it just felt heavier. And then something really weird happened. At the time I was wearing a watch and I remember I was out and about during my day and I looked at my watch and it had stopped. I was like, oh, that's really weird. My watch just stopped. And I came back home and I opened a drawer where I have some extra watches. I think I had two in there. One was belonged to my mom, I think. And one was mine. And both watches had stopped. Like, how could this be possible that all three of the watches that I own all stop on the same day? Like, this is so weird. So at that moment, that's when I started I had fear. I was like, oh my gosh, is the curse back? Like, is something bad happening? So I reached out to the psychic, and we can use her name. Her name was Marie. I don't think that was her real name anyway, so I don't mind calling her that. So I reached out to Marie and I said, my watch has stopped. And she said, yes, your quartz watch has stopped too. This is not good. It looks like maybe we haven't cleared everything. And so I need to go to LA and do a clearance in your apartment. And I was like, really? She's like, yep, if you don't want to backtrack, if you don't want to go back to the past, we have to do this clearance. I have to be there in person. So I purchased a ticket for her to get on a plane and come to LA. I picked her up at the airport and she came to stay with me. And the first thing she said was, we need to go to the church. We need to take communion. And I need to see if I can get some supplies from the local Catholic church. So we went to the church and we sat in service through the service, and then we got communion. And then at the end, everybody was kind of like filing out of the church. We were outside and she said, oh, I have to go talk to the nuns. So she went over and started talking to these nuns that were nearby. And then she came back and she said, yes, they have the supplies that I'll need. So now we can do a kind of ceremony that we need to do to clear your space. And I said, okay, like what do we need to do? And she said, well, there needs to be a sacrifice and we need $10,000. Yeah. And my heart just sank, right? Like my stomach is just in a knot. And I'm like, what? What do you mean we need $10,000? She's like, we need $10,000. God needs this sacrifice in order to clear this for good forever. So my bank account, which previously really had nothing in it, but because I had gone to LA, my dad was very supportive of me going to LA when kind of no one else was. And he said, look, I'm going to put some money in the bank so that, to help you to get started in LA and to help you through this first year of school and things like that. So I had like this stash, which was sitting there, and I withdrew $10,000 and I brought it home. And I said, okay, well, what do we do now? She's like, well, we have to burn it. So I happen to have like this big wok. So we light the fire. She throws little things to start a fire in the wok. And like it hasn't really begun yet. Like just like the kindling, right, is on fire. And my smoke alarm of my apartment goes off. So I have to go and I'm trying to take out the smoke alarm, stop it from going off. And by the time I get back, because I'm really ready to see, this was a wad of cash, right? I had never dealt with this huge wad of cash before. And I come back and the fire's going, the fire's in flames. And she's like, oh, it's been done. We burned the money. So at that moment, I was like, she pocketed it, right? She definitely has it on her body somewhere. She put it in a bag somewhere. I'm kind of looking all around. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, I wanted to see it burn. She's like, oh, I've already burned it. And yeah, was I suspect at that moment? Yes, I was. But it was like this weird, I don't know, you could call it cognitive dissonance, right? Of like, because I wanted to believe so much that I was getting rid of this curse. And at that point, it was almost like she was a mother figure in my life, guiding me, telling me what to do, pray this prayer, do this thing. And also at the same time, I was actually scared of her. So I knew what she was kind of capable of at this point in terms of, the thing in the jar and like knowing things. And so I was like, wow, if I say something against her or confront her, is she going to retaliate and do something to me? I don't know. Like, so all of these things were kind of going on in my head at the same time. And I just chose to go forward with, okay, in this moment, I'm just going to go with this. I'm just going to believe that she burned the money, even though I have my doubts. And she said, we have to take these ashes to a Catholic church, where we had to put them in like a kind of a bag, like maybe like even a brown bag. It was pretty simple. And we're going to take them to a church and we're going to lay them to rest there. Okay, so we went to this church. I remember putting some bags of these ashes behind some statues. And that was it. And then I got her on a plane and she went back to Connecticut. And I kind of went on with my life here in LA.
Okay, that's wild. So
Yeah.
part of you was convinced that she had stolen the money. I mean, I don't know if you ask me, I'm like, for sure she put it somewhere. But what about the ashes? Because you said you had ashes. How much did you have? Because that would give you an indication of how much was burned based on
Right.
how much was left.
Great question. So the part I forgot to mention was when she first came to the apartment, she saw the layout and she saw that I had some pictures of my mom. And she also saw that I had some books about grieving and losing a loved one, kind of like a self-help kind of book near my bed. And she said, you need to get rid of the pictures of your mom. You're living in the past. You're calling back her memory. Like, you need to move forward. And all of these pictures and these books are pulling you back into the past. And so part of the burning was burning my mom's pictures. And so I had, maybe I had a couple in the frame that I took out, and I had some that were just loose pictures that were around that also went into the fire. So between like the whatever kindling we kind of used to get the fire going and then the pictures and stuff, there was like a bag about, this big, probably of ash and remnants of the fire. Yeah.
Okay. I also had a question about the church you said you went to. So before that, you said you went to I believe you said a Catholic church. What kind of Catholic church was it? Because as far as I'm aware, and I don't know a whole lot about this, but as far as I know, not everyone can take communion in a Catholic church. You need to have like confirmation and be baptized and all these things. So had you had that before, and had she had that before? And do you know why you were able to take communion in that specific church?
I don't know why we were able to take communion. They welcomed everyone. So, the priest spoke, and then he did welcome everyone up. So yeah, I don't know why. I definitely didn't fit the rules, right, to go and accept communion. I definitely didn't fit it, and I don't know Marie's status. Like, I can't speak for her or whatever's going on there. So yeah, I don't know how we were able to receive communion, but we did.
So it's interesting that there's a lot of ties with the Catholic Church. It seems like that's something that she was using in her practice.
Yeah.
Whatever that means, I don't know.
Yeah.
So okay, now you have these. You said you buried these ashes in the Catholic Church ground place.
Yeah, we didn't really put it under the ground, but I put it under. They had some statues, right? A lot of Catholic Church have these iconic big statues. So we went to a different Catholic church than the one we had previously gone to get communion. And so she's like, just pick a statue and kind of put the bag behind the statue. So that's what I did. It was some statue of a saint. I don't know who. And I just put the bag behind the statue.
Okay. So now she said this was good, because she said that the first time that this was done. And now she said, no, this is definitely done. She had to travel there in person, steal $10,000 by what it looks like, and now it's going to be good. Do you know if the watches started working after that, or if there was any sign that this had worked?
They did. Like, things felt lighter. My watch started working again. I just all around felt better, like after she had left. Of course, I was suspect, so I had that kind of tension there. But yeah, like things did feel better after she left.
Okay. So how did things evolve for you in the months following that?
Yeah. So I was at UCLA taking classes. I became very disillusioned with academia after just 2 quarters. I knew it was not my path that I was supposed to pursue. Um, so I took a break. I took a leave of absence from my classes there, and I started teaching English. And the school that I was teaching at was just very close to UCLA. And so I was teaching English. I was also getting involved in fitness and strength conditioning classes. So eventually I started teaching those. So it was kind of like finding my life in LA and finding more stability and groundedness. And yeah, I was doing really well. And we weren't talking. I didn't talk to Marie for a really long time. And then I started dating a Turkish man, and we fell in love. We would do different things around LA together. We just had so much fun. But he was here on a student visa, so he had to go back to Turkey eventually. And we decided we want to continue. He had to serve in the military because it's required for young Turkish men to serve a certain amount of time in the military. And so we continued to talk throughout his time in the military, whenever he'd get a break and things like that. And then one night I got this really scary dream, and it was my mom. And I had always wanted the dream where people, your dead loved one comes back and they look really young and youthful, and they are just sending you love and kind of letting you know they're okay. I always had that fantasy of wanting that dream. I never got that dream. But here my mom was in this dream, and she was very thin, very pale, like very bony. And she was cooking all this pasta. And so like the pots and pans were like boiling over this stovetop, and she was cooking. And I said, Mom, why are you cooking all this food? It was like all this spaghetti, pasta. And she turns around and looks at me, and she wasn't talking to me. She just had this blank, lifeless stare. And I get closer to her and I put my hands on her forearms to hold her. And I was like, Mom, what's wrong? What's wrong? And it was like when I went to grab her arm, it was like I just held bone. It was like going right down to the bone. And she just stared at me. So it was a horrible stare. And so I woke up from that dream, and it was one of those dreams that it felt really real. Sometimes in the dream you can know, oh, this is just a dream. When I woke up, it felt so real. And I think I was teaching dance at the time, and I went to teach my dance class or something. And right after the dance class ended, I see this missed call from Marie. And I call her back because I had just had this weird dream. And she says, have you had any weird dreams lately? And I'm like, oh my gosh, how did you know? Right? Like I'm thinking, how did you know? I said, yeah, I had a weird dream last night about my mom. Well, what was in the dream? So I described to her the dream. And she said, your mom's trying to tell you that she's not doing well. She's really not doing well, and she needs your help. And at this point, now I'm frustrated because it's like we've already done certain ceremonies to clear the curse and stuff. So now I'm kind of getting angry. And I'm like, well, we already did all this stuff to clear this curse. It was supposed to be done. And I don't understand why my mom's still not at rest. So I kind of was like fighting back a little bit. And she said, okay, let me look into it a little bit more. So I don't know. That night goes by. The next day she calls me and she says, I had a vision of your boyfriend, and the vision was that there was like an explosion, and your boyfriend, fell back or fell down during this explosion. Now, she didn't know. I mean, she knew I had someone I was interested in, but she didn't know he was in the military. I had never told her she was in the military. So it was weird for me to sense like, okay, she had this vision of him with this explosion. But at the same time, he wasn't reporting to me any kind of scary things. It was just kind of your typical, like, we've got to clean this and now we've got to guard duty over here or whatever. And it was kind of not a lot of, he wasn't in a dangerous situation. So the next time I talked to him, though, I said, are you doing okay? Like, is anything dangerous happening? And he said, well, we've been warned that there is a suicide bomber that has, we've been forewarned that this is a potential. And so when we're on guard duty now, we have to be extra careful and there's more people on the watch, etc. And he seemed really out of sorts. Like, he seemed really a lot more anxious than I had seen him before. So that made me nervous. And then I started to believe, well, maybe Marie was right. Maybe she did see something that is a potential. So I called her back. Of course, there must be a sacrifice. You must send me this amount of money, and I will do these prayers, and I will protect him, and on and on and on. So I do it. And this is, Gabriel, this is like, I mean, there's nothing in my bank account. I remember it was like Christmas, and I went to Christmas mass somewhere, and I was by myself, and I was just on my knees, just crying, first of all, to save his life. But I mean, I had used everything I had for this to try to protect him. And yeah, it was horrible. It was one of the most horrible Christmases I've ever been through in my whole life.
How much money did you end up spending on this psychic, Marie?
I would say total, it probably has to be around 20,000.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, that's just a guesstimate. Yeah. But
Okay.
For this or that or the other, once you add everything up, probably that's what we're looking at. So
did anything ever happen to him?
No, thank God. After kind of, I remember Christmas Day into New Year's I was just praying every day. And then something shifted. It did get a little bit lighter. Marie had said she had, protected him. When I talked to him next, though, it was different. It was different between us. He really, I could tell he didn't feel the same about me as he used to. Something had shifted. And I thought, okay, maybe it's the time in the military. It's very stressful. And his time was over. So he was getting out and he was going back to live with his parents for a time before he was going to figure out how to move back here to the United States. But during that time, I could just tell, like, he just didn't feel the same about me anymore. And it was so tough. And eventually, I mean, months went by when we had these conversations, and I could tell he just didn't feel love for me anymore. And so I was the one who had to end it. I just said, look, I know you're not really wanting to continue, so let's just end this. And so that's what we did. We ended it. And then 2 weeks later, this was very fast after I ended that, 2 weeks later, I started to have these very weird physical symptoms show up. The first symptom I noticed was that I couldn't taste anything. And at the time, I'm in like the peak physical condition of my life. I was training every day as a fitness instructor. I was taking classes. I was teaching classes. So I was in really pretty good shape. And I was also doing this dance show that I was in. And I remember after the dance show, I was like really craving nuts. I'm like, I really have to eat nuts right now. It was so weird. And so I started eating, but I couldn't stop eating them. It was just gratuitous eating. And then the next day I got really sick. I got really sick to the point of I had another show that night and I was like, I don't know if I can perform in this show because I was vomiting profusely. And I thought, okay, it's just like a stomach bug, whatever. Hopefully I can make it to the show. And I did the show. And then the next day I didn't have anything going on. So I was like, okay, I'll just rest. And, after you have like a stomach flu or some kind of sickness like that, you just want to eat crackers or something really light. You don't want anything heavy. No, I wanted a burger. I wanted to eat a burger. This was what I was craving. So I go out, I order a burger, and I eat it. And I said, well, this is the worst burger I've ever had in my life. This is terrible. So then I go to another place and I order another burger. I mean, this is like a big thing like this, right? I mean, it's a lot of meat. And I eat it right down like nothing. And I'm like, no, this burger sucks too. This really wasn't a good burger. Third. I finally figure out, like the reason why these burgers are all terrible is because I can't taste them. So I had no sense of taste. Anything I ate, I could not taste it anymore. And I would get these insatiable cravings. Like I'd be craving weird things like pineapple. I gotta have pineapple. So I'd go get the pineapple, I'd eat it, not be able to taste it. And I couldn't feel full. So it was like I was shoving all this food down, but my stomach didn't feel full ever, not once. It was like I could keep on going and no satiation would happen at all. So I'm like, this is so weird. What's going on? So like a couple more weeks go by of the same sort of things, and my body starts to shift and change. So now people that are taking my fitness class are noticing and they're saying, oh, Kirsten, are you pregnant? And I'm like, of course, that's so humiliating for me because here I am teaching the class. I'm supposed to be fit. And these students of mine are asking me if I'm pregnant. So I'm like, no, but of course I'm eating all this food. So I'm thinking, well, maybe I'm just getting fatter or something. And these other symptoms start to arise. Like my head is really itchy. My feet are really swollen. And I'm starting to feel like some scratching. It's like a little scratch from within. All I can describe is like kind of like nails against your stomach lining. Kind of like that feeling is what I would feel. And to try to like not feel that feeling, I would eat some more so I could try to get a layer of food in between kind of like this scratching sensation and my stomach lining. It was not pleasant, to say the least.
Well, the obvious question to ask is, was there a reason why you could have been pregnant? Like, were you actually pregnant?
I wasn't. No, because, and I had just, like I had seen an OBGYN around that time. I remember, because I remember searching for a lot of solutions. I'm like, I'll go to the gynecologist and get it like a checkup and see what's going on. So I went, my stomach's huge. They're like, yeah, everything looks good. Okay. So yeah. And I took, because that's who I took some pregnancy tests, a couple of them. Nope. It was negative. Anytime I took a pregnancy test, it was negative. So there was no way I could have been pregnant at that particular time. I had just broken up with, my boyfriend and I wasn't seeing anyone. So there was no chance of being pregnant. Yeah. So I went to see an acupuncturist. I even went to see a psychologist because someone had said, oh, well, you just went through this breakup. Like maybe it's psychosomatic. I didn't think it was, but I was like, oh, okay. I was willing to try anything because now I'm getting very desperate because these symptoms are super weird. And so I went to see a psychologist and within the first 10 minutes of the conversation, I'm like, okay, no, like I've already seen a psychologist growing up in my childhood. Like I kind of know how this works. And I feel like I've done a lot of healing. Like I don't need to revisit like these particular areas, and it's not going to help what's going on with my body right now. I was really scared to see a regular doctor because I thought they would just think I was crazy. And also, I just kind of intuitively knew that there wasn't really anything they were going to be able to do. I mean, they can prescribe some medication, but is that going to solve my problem? Probably not. So I wasn't interested in exploring that route. So yeah, that was my state for like a while.
Okay. So at the point that we left off, you looked pregnant. You had a lot of
Yep.
pregnancy symptoms.
Yep.
Did things continue to get worse after that?
Yeah, they got worse. So I was eating all the time. I was desperate all the time. I was like, it was hard for me to go to sleep at night because the scratching sensation, it almost like, then the scratching kind of felt like knives at one point. So it's this kind of tormenting pain. And also, you know, my mental state, my emotional state, it's all, you know, I'm so, I feel so burdened. I feel so heavy, and it's just not good. And so I was at the 3rd Street Promenade, which is a kind of a walking street in Santa Monica where the traffic can't go. It's only pedestrian. And so there are all these shops along that street, and also vendors that are up and down the sidewalk, some performers, singers, dancers, etc. So I remember going into this convenience store, getting more food, filling up this empty hole that will never be filled. And I remember sitting outside and I was shoving my face with something, and I see this psychic sign. And in my head, I'm like, I don't want to go into this realm again, because at this point in time, you know, after I broke up with my boyfriend, Marie had tried to call me one last time. And I said, look, like you said, we were, you know, you were praying for us to be together and all this stuff. And now we're apart. And I really like, you know, I was like, I don't understand what's going on here. And I kind of raised my voice to her, and she hung up on me because I think I was asking too many questions that she couldn't answer. And that's the last time I had spoken to her. So she wasn't, obviously, I didn't want help from her. And I'm looking at this woman. She's very young, maybe early 20s. And I'm like, oh my God, I don't know what else to do. I don't know what else to do. So I went up to her, and she said, you know, do you want a reading? I'm like, okay. And I think I was like $1 short for this reading. She's like, it's okay. It's okay. We'll do it anyway. So she spreads the cards and she says, you've got something wrong with your stomach. And I said, no. No, I don't. Obviously I did. And I'm just like, no, that's not it. She's like, you're really scared, aren't you? And I said, yeah. She said, here's my number. Here's my card. Just call me day or night, whenever. Just call me if you need anything. So I sat on that card for 3 days. I didn't do anything. And then, yeah, by the 3rd or 4th day, I was like, I don't know where else to go. I called her. I said, look, I am eating all the time. I can't taste anything. I can't fill my stomach. Like I'm constantly either hungry, ravenous, empty, or I have these like sharpshooting, clawing kind of stomach pains. She said, I will make you a meal that will restore your taste. And I think I can help you. Just let me look into some things. Okay. So we prepare a day where I'm going to go to her house and she's going to feed me this meal that will hopefully bring my taste back. Before I went in to receive the meal, she sits me down and she said, okay, like I've looked at everything. You know, when you go see a psychic, you usually give them your name, your full name, your birth date. And then usually that kind of opens it up so they can read things. So she's like, I had done that with her. She said, I saw in your family line of women that there's a curse. And it started several generations back with this woman who gave birth to a healthy baby girl and this other woman who gave birth to a stillborn. And the one who gave birth to the stillborn put a curse on the healthy one, and all the women. She's telling the exact same, almost verbatim, what Marie, the first psychic, had told me at the start. And so I was just like, I was kind of blown away that she would say exactly the same thing. So it made me believe this story even more. And she's like, and now what's happening, the reason why you're undergoing these pregnancy symptoms is because you're the one to break the curse. We have to like just abort this, she didn't call it it was like a spiritual pregnancy is what she called it. We have to do a kind of abortion, a clearing. And this is how it's coming through right now. When I heard her say the word pregnancy, because again, up until this point, I wasn't thinking of it as a pregnancy. I was just thinking I have some really weird symptoms. I will add that I didn't have a period during that time either. So that's why I took the pregnancy test, just to confirm. But like, yeah, I was, because when she said the word pregnancy, I was like, that's what it is. That's what it is. Because exhibiting all the signs of it. And it was kind of a relief. It was a relief to hear that, because at least now I knew what was going on with me. So I sat down for this meal. It was kind of like rice and maybe some meat. I want to say there was pork. I'm not sure. But rice and something, it was kind of like all mixed together. She also gave me some alcohol. She said, I know you don't drink. I didn't tell her I didn't drink, but she knew it from reading me. She's like, I know you don't drink, but she said, if you can just drink this alcohol, I think it will calm what's inside of you. It'll just calm it down for a little bit. So I did. It was just a little amount. And I ate the meal. And she said, don't worry, we're going to solve this. We're going to get through this. And I was in an enormous amount of pain that day. It was just painful to walk around like this all the time. And I remember going home and just falling asleep. And the next day, or it was not the next day, but a couple days later, I love drinking tea. And so I had some green tea, and I could finally taste the tannin in the tea, and I could taste the flavor of the jasmine. And I was like, okay, my taste is back. That was a huge victory at that moment. And so I believed that with her help, we could solve it.
So, okay. So it's now you get kind of confirmation that this is a pregnancy, but not a normal one. She said a spiritual pregnancy, whatever that means, because there's a physical aspect to it as well. It's not like it's just a ghost in your stomach. There's something there, or at least there's something that's causing your whole body to react this way. So after you got the sign that this was working with the tea and stuff, did she have you do other things to finally be able, because she talked about like an abortion, like aborting this thing. So what did she have you do to be able to do that?
Yeah. So the first thing I think that started was a candle. She's like, I'm going to make a candle for you. And, you're also going to have a candle. So she also gave me a candle, and I was to burn it every night, and just pray for deliverance. Basically, I was to just pray for a positive outcome. And so it started with a candle. She was going to be burning a candle. I was burning a candle. She also gave me a necklace to wear. It was like a white shell necklace with a red string, for protection. She had me give everything that Marie had given me. So if I had any leftover, like the little charm that she gave me, for example, or she's like, anything that Marie gave you, if you have any leftovers from her, we're going to dispose of it. Like, it all has to go. She said, I think she was trying to help you, but she really didn't help you. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, figured that one out. So, yeah, so all of those things from Marie just got disposed of. We threw those away. It was kind of like starting again. And the big thing was, yeah, working up to this one moment, which ironically, from the time I started the symptoms to this particular, let's say, ceremony, we'll call it that, was like a 9-month time period. And so what she had me do was there was a kind of thing I had to light that created a smell, almost like sage. I did use sage. She's like, sage your room, put salt, like kosher salt around like the windowsill, the doors, etc., kind of to protect. I did use sage, and I did use this other thing. I forgot what it's called, but it kind of like, when you set fire to it, it kind of shoots out little sparks, but it creates this really big kind of billowing smoke. She's like, I want you to stand over it. So all this smoke is kind of going up into my body. And then she's like, and then you're going to do your bath. So I filled the bathtub. And then I think I had 3 crystals that she had purchased and like kind of designed for this ceremony. She's like, put the crystals on your body. So that's what I did. And then I was to kind of imagine myself giving birth. And then the ceremony would be over. So that's what I did. I got in the bath, had these crystals on top of me, and I'm just praying that this thing comes out. And there was definitely some crying and some tears and some emotional release with this as well. And then I got out of the tub, I went to sleep, and the next day I got up and I felt a lot better. Like my body wasn't totally back to normal, but I felt the heaviness of everything that I was carrying. I felt it gone. And I thought, oh, great, it's gone. Like, this is done. Like, I finally did it. And I was so happy. I was so grateful. And the next 3 months went by, like my body went back to like its normal shape and size before everything happened. And I was just, I was very, very happy and relieved. And then one day it just came back. I could feel like this little scratching in my stomach again. And I'm like, oh, something's not right. And then a couple days later, it just got worse and worse and worse. So it came back. Now, when it came back, it wasn't in its full force. The first 9 months were the absolute worst. I mean, it was terrible. It was terrible. When it came back, it was like kind of in a lesser form, and I could deal with it a little bit better. But yeah, it was still there. It was still there.
So when you did the ceremony to whatever, expel, abort, whatever the name you want to call for that spiritual baby, is there anything that came out? Was there something in there, or?
Nothing came out physically. The next day, a lot came out of me in the toilet. So there was a lot of, just different colors. I would say a lot of like black and red, not to get too graphic here, but like there was a lot that came out of me in the toilet the next day. I didn't vomit, which is great because I hate vomiting, but yeah, I was pretty much on the toilet like the whole next day.
Oh.
Expelling stuff. Yeah.
Part of me like wants to make this connection, but I don't know if it's there. So I'm going to ask you.
Yeah.
Because you talked about something kind of appearing out of nowhere in the mason jar in the beginning, right? Mm-hmm. Was there something sort of like that, or is it different?
I didn't have one of those appear. It just, Yeah, nothing like really weird was in the toilet other than like colors. I saw like a lot of black, a lot of like really, really dark black dots and red dots. Um, yeah, I would say that that's what appeared, but nothing, yeah, nothing that had a shape to it.
Okay.
Hmm.
And in your story so far, we've talked about prayers a few times. Actually, we've talked about
Hmm.
going to a Catholic church, taking communion, all of these things. Before that journey with the psychic started, you didn't believe in God, but now you're doing these things that, although they're not Christian. This is from a psychic, but you're starting to do these things. Was there a shift in terms of how you felt about God, or things like that while this was happening?
Yeah, yeah, there was such a shift. I was so on my knees, on the floor, on the ground. I felt like I was going to die. I felt like I was going to die. So every day was a prayer, really, to just spare my life. Like, please, God, please help me through this, was mostly my prayer every day. There was a moment in time where I just really wanted to end it. I really wanted to end it because when you're dealing with this kind of darkness, there's also the voices in here, the negative voices that are coming at you. And it was like one day I got out a knife and I had it to my stomach. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna end this. I'm gonna abort this thing myself. And then I just paused and I was like, I don't know how to kill this thing without killing myself in the process. So I dropped the knife and I just said, okay, God, like I'm just going to choose life. Like no matter what happens, I'm just going to keep choosing life and I'm going to keep choosing to wake up. It was like a moment to moment thing. And but yeah, after that I just kept promising that I would choose life no matter what the pain was. And I started to read the Bible every day. That was something the second psychic said, you have to read the Bible. Um, and so I started reading. Even if I didn't understand certain passages or whatever, I would just open the book to anywhere and start reading. Um, yeah. So my relationship to God was, I was so at that place where I thought I was going to die that it was a cry out to Him. It was a cry out.
It happens with a lot of people. I forget who said that. I believe it's Brian Melvin, if I remember correctly. If any one of you have been there for a while, but he said something like, the moment, like when you're about to die, the atheism leaves your body. And it happens for a lot of people. Like when people are at the brink of death, they start to seek
Mm-hmm.
for something higher because there's something
Yeah.
inside that kind of knows that there must be more. So
Mm-hmm.
it's interesting that this happened. But let's get back to your pregnancy, because although all this thing came out of you the first time, you said it came back. So what happened when it came?
Obviously, I was devastated that it came back. Um, I went again to the second psychic who I'd been working with, and we tried another ceremony that was similar to the one I described to you. She said, take this jar, and I was like, I've already done the jar thing, but we did the jar thing again. We did the jar thing again, and I held the jar. Same. It was the same thing. I held the jar here. It was covered. It was all locked up, and I held it in my hand, right close to my stomach. It was supposed to be very close, and she said some prayers, um, and the once again, like as soon as I looked at the jar again, there was this kind of tendril like octopus thing inside of it, and she said, okay, I'm gonna dispose of this. I'll take this. Why don't you go to the ocean? I lived very close to the ocean at that time, Pacific Ocean. I was in Santa Monica living there at the time, and I remember walking into the ocean and just asking God to baptize me, to like cleanse me with the ocean water. Um, but again, like I would feel light after the ceremony. I'd feel lighter, I'd feel better. And then a month or two would go by and then the symptoms would come back again. So this went on for a couple of years. And at a certain point, I was like, okay, like none of these ceremonies are working. I need to find some help elsewhere. Like this isn't working anymore or ever. And so the first place I went, ironically, was St. Monica's Catholic Church, which was right down the street from me. I walked there, and I asked to speak to a priest. And the priest who they got for me, he was really, really nice. And he's like, what's wrong? And I told him in a little less detail of everything that I just told you, the shortened version. And he asked if I had dreams about a devil fornicating with me. And I said, no, I've never had that dream. And he said, he was from Africa. So I could sense that he was open to these kinds of, or open to the idea that these things were possible. And he was like, well, you need to forgive everyone, be in prayer, be in fast. And in 1 week's time, I have to talk to my superior. And in 1 week's time, I want you to come back and we'll do something. And I was thinking he was going to do an exorcism because that's really what I was wanting, right? I'm like, please, someone get this out of me, deliver me. So I did everything he said. I wrote letters to people asking them for forgiveness. I fasted, I prayed. I came back in a week's time, and the superior, whoever was there, I walked in the room, and I'm thinking like, I'm going to lie down somewhere and they're going to pray over me and do this exorcism. Well, there's no Bible. There's no table where I'm supposed to lay on. We're just in a conference room. And I get introduced to his superior, and I said, sit down. And he said, okay, so tell me a little bit about what's going on. And I tell him, and he says, well, sometimes when we have childhood trauma, people have memories resurface, and it's important to go see a psychologist. He was basically telling me to go see a psychologist. And I was like, oh, okay, you're not going to help me. Got it. I mean, they didn't pray over me. They didn't do anything, really, not even a prayer. So I just said, okay, thanks a lot. And I walked out, and I said, okay, I guess it's not going to happen with the Catholic Church. I went to another church that my friend had recommended. She had gotten, she had received a healing at this church. Like she had an issue with her back, and she went to this church. It was kind of an evangelical style. And she received a healing like within that. And I said, okay, great. That's what I want. So I went to this church. After the service was complete, I talked to some people, and they sat me down, asked me the question, what's going on? And one of them said, I sense a lot of witchcraft around you, a lot of tarot. And I was like, yeah, probably. And I said, I really just need help. I'm having all of these physical symptoms, and something's terribly wrong. And they said, well, do you speak in tongues? I said, no. How do you speak in? Well, we're going to teach you how to speak in tongues. Okay. So they start kind of trying to teach me how to speak in tongues, and they're wanting me to join in, but I'm feeling really awkward about the whole thing. I really don't know what's going on or what to do. And they kind of interpreted my awkwardness as like resistance. And they're like, well, you're resisting. And so stay right there. We're going to talk to our superior or something. And so they went to talk to someone else, and they came back and they said, well, you can write this email and someone will reach out to you, something like that. And they gave me this little pamphlet of more about how to speak in tongues. And I went home and I was like, okay, well, that didn't really help. No one contacted me. I reached out via email and no one responded to my email. So I really wasn't finding anyone to do deliverance for me. I didn't know where to search. And I had been going, psychic number 2, it said, you should go to church, you should get baptized. Like during this whole, all this time, like, we're trying everything. So I did attend a church called the First African Methodist Episcopalian Church. I was really there for the gospel. It just lifted me up, and it really helped me during that time. So I did get baptized there. But I couldn't find the person who was going to deliver me. So it was a little disheartening. And at that point, because this was a 4-year period of time from like when the symptoms first started to them ending. So, at that point I was in full surrender of like, okay, God, like if I'm supposed to live with this for the rest of my life, I guess this is how I'm going to go through life. Like I was in a surrender state. And I was still teaching fitness classes. And there was a girl in my class who came up to me and she said, here's a card. I think you'd really like this. And it was a card to go see a chiropractor. And I was like, no, nothing's worked. I don't think this is going to work either. Like I was really just, I was really down and just not wanting to do anything. Cause you put yourself out there and you try and you try and you try and you don't get anywhere. You're finally like, just like, okay, nothing's going to work. I'm okay with this. So that you don't have to live with that the expectation and the disappointment. And that's what it was happening all the time. Expectation and disappointment, expectation, disappointment. I'm still not free. I'm still not free. So I did end up going to see this chiropractor. And the 8th session I had, I sat up from the table, and it's hard to explain, but it was like just right here. It was like an expansion of, oh, this is all a lie. Like I have been living this lie the entire time. The fact that I believed that my family was cursed, that the women in my family were cursed, that there's this story, that story is a lie. Like I just came to it. I can't describe it anyway. It just like came into my mind that the whole way I was living around this being a curse, it was a complete lie. And so I went to psychic number 2, who had been helping me, right, on and off, and, wanting to support me in any way that she could. And I went to her and I said, this is all a lie. This whole story about my family being cursed, it's a lie. And she said, she was really offended. She's like, are you calling me a liar? And I said, just do your own meditation on it, your own research on it. Do what you need to do. I'm just telling you, it's a lie. So sure enough, she called me like the next day and she said, you're right. It's a lie. And she said, Marie is doing this to all sorts of people, a lot of people. And she said, what do you want to do? And I said, well, I don't know. I have to try to get this thing out of me. And she's like, well, you figured it out. You figured out that it was a lie all along. She's like, so you know how to do this. You're going to create the ceremony this time. So I was like, okay. And I started thinking about how I wanted to do it. How I really express myself, like I said, is through dance. So I felt like, okay, I'm going to dance a dance, and I'm going to put all my energy into declaring that this is over, that this curse is non-existent. It was a lie all along, so it's not actually there. And whatever is occupying my body needs to leave. And so yeah, I created a dance that I danced. I rented out a studio space so that I could have the space to do it in. And I had some tools that I used during the dance as well. Like I had this really big sword, just because I felt like all that scratching and and it felt like knives in me. So I felt like, okay, I'm going into battle. This is my last battle with this thing. And so that's what kind of the sword represented, is the sword of truth and the sword of justice. That's what it represented to me. And I also used a flower, which was the lotus flower, just because my prayer was that anyone who was affected by these lies, anyone who was kind of ensnared by her, I wanted them to awaken in the way that I did, just in a moment of truth, of knowing that, yeah, you're so much more powerful. This is, this was a lie all along. So, so I incorporated the flower, and I showed up. I did this dance. I prayed that night to God. And then the next day, I woke up, and I felt that lightness. But I was so disappointed so many times. I had been through the cycle over and over and over again, that I was like, okay, I'm gonna be thankful. I'm gonna be thankful for this moment, but I'm also gonna wait and see, like, is it really gone? And it was hard. It was really, I'm not going to say like I had this big moment of like, and then it was gone and I was happy. No, I felt a weight lift, but I had to keep declaring it. I had to keep going to God and saying, it's really over. Yes, it's really over. Asking God, is it really over? God saying, yes, it's really over. And even if I had whatever residual symptoms, I call them residual because I did have more things come out of my body. I did vomit once after I taught. After this final ceremony, I did vomit out a lot of like red and black dots. And a lot of it was coming out in the toilet as well when I went to the bathroom. So a lot of purging was happening in the months after. And so it was kind of confusing for me because I always felt like, oh, is it attacking me again? Am I back here again when there's actually a demonic spirit or entity or whatever you want to call it? Is it occupying me? But I just kept declaring, no, it is finished. It is done. And yeah, I'm happy to say today that all of that is done. I don't feel any of that burden, and I haven't for a really long time. So I'm so grateful and so blessed.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's a very strange story, and I know you know that, right? But
yes.
It's very interesting to me. But a part that's interesting that we haven't really talked about is, because I did ask you about this, the development of your faith. But when I asked the question the last time, you said you started praying to God, you started believing in God. But since then, you talked about, and you went to church, to different churches. You started believing that this was something demonic. You got baptized. So can you kind of walk us through how that went? Because when someone says God, what does it really mean, right? There's a bunch of different religions. There's a bunch of different versions of God. Even within people that consider themselves Christians, they believe in different versions of God. So I'm curious about you. What was your faith process? And when you're talking about you were praying to God, like, what did you mean exactly?
Everything that I was feeling to God, and just opening up my heart to God, because in my experience, it took me to the lowest place, the darkest black hole I could possibly be in. Who else is there? Nobody else is there but God. And so in my darkest hour was when I felt the closest to God. And that sounds so weird and so strange, but that's the truth of it. I was like, I don't have anyone else. No one else is here to help me out of this. There's got to be a God to help me out of this. And so my faith started in desperation. It started from just wanting to live another day. And then it grew, and then it grew. It was slow over time. And I started to see God sending me angels and sending me these people right? People who opened, who did something kind, or who said something, or I don't know, who just turned me back to God. So I could see God working. And even though I had like kind of every reason to believe, well, all these things aren't working. I went to church. There is no God. Nobody's delivering me. Like I kind of had all the reason to be like, blow it off, right? There was just something inside me that was like, don't give up. Don't give up. Just keep on going. It was a moment to moment thing. And that's how my love of God grew. I realized, God all the time doesn't perform like the great miracle. I might not get to see the burning bush. I might not have a burning bush moment, right? But I had all these other slow confirmations that God was there. And I kept thinking, well, there must be a God because I'm still alive. Because I really couldn't understand how I hadn't died previously, right? I mean, I tell it like it is. I don't know if you can really feel the amount of pain it was, but it was a lot of pain. It was a lot of pain. And there were times where I don't even know how I got myself to work. I don't know how I was teaching at the time. It was like route memorization. Like I knew the lesson, so I was comfortable with it. But sometimes I really don't know how I got through a work day. I really don't. And I would come home and just sleep. And that's all I could do is just wake up, and I would sleep for 12, 15 hours sometimes when it was really, really bad. So yeah, my confirmation in the beginning was, okay, I'm still alive, so there must be a God.
And when you said you got baptized, the psychic had told you you need to get baptized. So did you get baptized because she had told you, or were you actually meaning to, like, the baptism itself?
I was meaning it. When she told me to, I was like, yes, that's a good idea. Like I wanted at that time, because at that time I was praying out of desperation. I said, yeah, I want to become closer to God. I want to become closer. So that was my way of becoming closer to God, is with the baptism.
And like I said, there's a lot of different gods out there. There's a lot of people that believe in different gods. But you went to churches. You went to people that believe that Jesus is God. So why Jesus specifically?
Oh gosh. Well, my answer now would be he's the Prince of Peace, right? And that's all I wanted. I was like, oh, I wanted peace. I think when I was a little girl, I always kind of, when I was praying in kind of that innocent way of just talking, it was like I was talking to Jesus. And so I think even without, going to church or whatever, his presence is everywhere. His presence is everywhere. So I kind of knew about him without knowing about him, I guess. And so that's why I was drawn to going to, people of Christian faith. Yeah.
So talking about your faith and your faith in Jesus specifically, do you think that had something to do with the fact that the ceremony you did at the end worked, whereas the other ones before that the psychics were doing didn't last?
That's a great question. I think, because I always think, okay, why did I go on this path? Why was this a part of my life? It's such a strange story to live. And I think that God really wanted to show me, to have a sense of his power through him as his child. And so prior, with all these other ceremonies, I wanted Marie to solve it. I wanted this psychic to solve it. I wanted this person to solve it, right? It was everybody else had to figure it out. I was looking outside myself the whole time. And so I think I was praying so hard, and I was also so at a point of neutrality. That's another thing that I reached, because prior to that, I was really like, it's gotta end. The suffering has to end, right? And it was so passionate about it, and there was such a charge around it. There were so many emotions around it. And then I finally got to a place of, if I get delivered, it's okay. And if I don't get delivered, it's still okay. I still love God, no matter what. That's the point I was at when I did that ceremony. And, through God's grace, I'm not advising anyone to do ceremonies like I did, or definitely don't see psychics. But I do think there was some, right? There's nothing that goes to waste in God's grace, right? Like this whole story has some sort of purpose to it. And I think for me, the lesson was, Kirsten, please recognize that you are a child of God, and you do have the power to order demons out of your life when you need to order them out. So that was, I don't know if that answers your question. I think that was the difference.
So, Kirsten, you have a very interesting story. You have a lot of experiences with psychics.
Yeah.
So, and you believed that they could help you, which turned out that none of them could. Right. But there's a lot of people that are intrigued in psychics. It seems to be making kind of a comeback in North American culture as a whole. So if there was someone here that was listening, that was intrigued in some of these things, or that have done that in the past, whatever it may be, what would you want to tell them?
Yeah. I would want to tell them, investigate your heart closely of why you want to go. A lot of times people go because they're in grief, like I was. There's something wrong in their life. They feel something's wrong. And what I'd advise is, when you have that kind of grief, it's heartbreaking, because it's like you have a hole. And when you're trying, and in a way you're trying to fill that hole. And so when you go to a psychic and they're doing divination, this is not of God. This is not of God. So what that hole then is opening up to is a dark realm. And so what you want to do with that hole is fill it with God's love. And that might be super hard to do right at the moment of grief, because it can feel so painful and devastating. That's like, how can I connect with God? But I promise you that God is in that too. God is with you in that pain. And all you have to do is start to open up your heart, talk, just start with a conversation, even if it's an angry one, even if it's like, why God this happened? Ask and you shall receive, right? You will get an answer. It might not be the same day. It might be the next day. It might be a week later, but you're going to start to get answers from God. So that's the first thing. The second group of people that go see psychics are the people that just like kind of want to have fun. Like, oh, let's see what they say. Let's see what they say. And it's not for entertainment at all. At all. It is a portal. It's a gateway to a darker realm. So you might think it's, just for fun or on the surface level. But really, again, it's giving consent for your being to be open to darker influences. So, so that's what I would say to people who are thinking about seeing a psychic, is just consider that.